All right, everybody, it's Roberto here. We're live with episode 4 of Foundational Healing and the Rob Anderson Show. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you sharing your time and space and your attention with me. As I believe I mentioned last episode, our attention is the most valuable asset that we have. It was James Corbett that said that, and it really resonated with me. And since then, it's kind of just sticks in my mind often. I'll hear it creep back up when I'm focused on something that really just doesn't deserve my attention. It's like I'm off on a timeline, and it could be something as simple as having your morning coffee and something's happening outside, and then all of a sudden you start drifting and out your window and you're paying attention to what the fuck's going on over there, and it doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, back to the Zen moment. That's something else. It's not my timeline. It has nothing to do with me. So our attention is the most valuable resource we have, and it's a big thing. So I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you gain value from the show and the series and everything that I'm doing, and just sharing my journey, even though it feels vulnerable and it's difficult sometimes. And I don't like going back in the past, but it's to allow other people to say, "Hey, oh my God, this guy's gone through something similar," and that's how we actually understand. Um, how we understand ourselves better is that it doesn't feel so lonely when you know other people have gone through it, or it gives you inspiration saying, wow, that guy went through that, or something worse. I can get through this. So today I was, this afternoon kind of, what am I going to talk about? What's popping out at me? And I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and it just happens to be kind of linear from the last episode where we finished off. And it's something that most people probably have one, so they're going to probably relate to it unless they're currently not employed or not working. But most people have a job. And so the next step that I took on my foundational healing journey when it really started, and it's kind of, it goes like this, up and down, up and down. So, uh, but today's topic is quitting your job. And that might be a big step, a big reach for some of you. So don't think I'm minimizing it. It If you're like me, I overthink every decision I make in my life, and I'm learning not to think and lead from my heart, not my mind. But I was raised. My dad always said, "Use your head. Use your head." Even if he wasn't speaking to me, he'd be telling a story about somebody, cutting him off in traffic, and be like, "Use your head." Like so that was just something that was always stuck in my mind. And I think a huge portion of our society, it's ingrained in us to be logical, to do this, follow the program. You got to do this, then you got to do that, then you got to get the job, then you got to get the girl, then the house, and so it's all about being logical and thinking and analyzing. And I love, half of me, I think all of me is a free spirit in a lot of ways, but we get sucked into things at time to time. And but so the it all to bring it back full circle. I'm kind of rambling, but to bring it back full circle, it's not necessarily an easy decision to come by, especially if you love your job. Maybe you love what you do. Maybe you love the people that you work with. Maybe there's certain factors that aren't healthy for you. For myself, I actually loved my job. I didn't love one of the owners of the company. At first I did. It seemed like, everything's awesome when it's new, but then it becomes monotonous and everything. But I loved my boss. I loved the people that I worked with in the office. They were amazing. And the big part for me was that it was a 3 hour commute each day minimum. And that's like if I hit bus to subway and bus, right on time, that was like the quickest I could do it in. So it was the 3 hour minimum commute. If there was any sort of delays or I missed, a bus here or there, it was longer, and that was taking its toll on me. It was just, it felt like I was like, oh my God, same thing day in, day out, 5 days a week, getting on the bus, going on the subway, getting on the bus, another bus, and then walking the rest of the way. Like it was just this. I'm like, this is crazy. If this job was next door to me or a half-hour walk away, who knows? I might have stayed there for a few more years. But that was what was really taking its toll on me. And so after getting my bike and moving out on my own, and I was getting healthier and exercising a lot more, but still spending a minimum 3 hours of your day just really doing nothing. I was reading and things like that, but it it's just it doesn't feel like you're being productive or you're enjoying your life or you're living really, when you're stuck on a tube in the underground subway. To me, I thought it was cool when I first moved to Toronto, and then it just becomes like this like death tube that you're stuck in. So it it kind of crossed my mind. It said like, I don't I can't do this job anymore. And then so I told my boss that I was thinking about it, and he said, "Well, what about a raise?" And I said, "I don't know. Like, does money does that help? Does a raise help?" So I asked for a $10,000 raise, and he brought it to the owner of the company, and eventually the owner of the company said no. And that really pissed me off because we worked for a multi-million dollar company. The year I worked there, we did 228 million in sales company-wide in Canada. And our break even for the company, because the controller told me, was 42 million. So basically, all the excess of that is profits. And I asked for a $10,000 raise, and I calculated it based on the two owners and what I thought they made. And it was like me asking the guy for like 45 minutes of his time. I asked for a $10,000 raise. He probably makes $50 million a year, and he couldn't spare 10,000. And so he said no. And I was like, that's it. I quit. And my boss was like, no. And, then he started giving me well, we do this and we do that for you. And there's a lot of other benefits. And I was like, it's not cutting it. And even the CFO called me into his office, and he was like, Rob, he's like, why didn't you tell me? He's like, I would have got you a $30,000 raise. And he's like, we love you. We want you to stay. And at that point, I was like, it's not about the money anymore. And it was about the health thing, the mental health aspect of it. But at that point, too, it was about more. So it was the principle of the matter. It's like, no, I asked this owner, this multi-million dollar owner, for $10,000, which is pocket change to the guy. And he said no. So it's like, if you can't even give me 45 minutes of your time to an employee to talk or a raise that's worth that amount of time, seemingly, who places value on anything, but that was the thing. It's like I said to my CFO, I was like, even if you offered me $1 million, I wouldn't stay because I don't want to work for that guy anymore. And that was a tough decision, because I quit, I wasn't able to get EI. And so it was like, what am I doing here? And so I started looking for another job before I even left. And I left on very amicable terms with everybody in the company. I even gave my boss, instead of just 2 weeks notice, I said, you know what, I'll stay on until you find another person to replace me. I don't want to leave you guys high and dry. I really appreciated the opportunity 2 years ago when I started. So, I'm a team player. I didn't want to be a dick about it. And so I stayed on. I think it was a month before they found somebody and he started. So I stayed on a couple extra weeks and stuff, and it was good. But during that time, I was looking for a new job, and so I thought I was going to kind of do a lateral transition. At the time, I was working for a mutual fund company. Well, actually, it was a flow-through share company, which I don't even know, I don't even know if they're available in Canada anymore. They might be, but it was essentially a tax shelter for oil and gas and mining companies, exploration companies, but it had a float mutual fund aspect to it. But so I started looking for jobs, and I had a headhunter working with me, and I found this. He found this one job for me. It was really, uh, it at the time it was like, wow, this is amazing. This is going to be even better. It was way more money than I was making. It was way closer. It was only a half hour away, right downtown Toronto on the waterfront. Beautiful view across from Queens Quay. So just looking out on Lake Ontario, like amazing. And I was like, wow, this is a huge step up from where I was, not only in the view, and I'm not out in the boonies an hour and a half away outside of the city. I moved downtown so I could find a job downtown, and just so happens the job I found was up in like Richmond Hill. But anyways, so it was amazing, and I went and I had an interview with the manager there. It was this for CIBC, and it was doing inside sales. And he said the guy that before me was making anywhere from 250 to 300,000 a year. So he said basically in 4 years, he's like, I guarantee you'll be a millionaire. And so I thought about it and went back for a second interview. And then I even went back there. I think it was a Sunday or a Saturday. I just went back. I just wanted to go feel it out without the pressure of going for an interview. I just went and, got an ice cream. It was a, spring day. Had an ice cream, walked around, and I actually used to live on Queens Quay before I moved out on my own. So if you remember the last episode, that's where I lived. And so I was familiar with the area. And I liked it and it was nice, but I wanted to change. And so it was like kind of going back to something that was old. And not only that, the job was the same. So even though I was going to be making way more money, quite a bit more money, anywhere, 250 to 300,000, was way more than I was getting paid at the previous job. Um, Something just felt off. And so that day when I went there and I just really absorbed it. And so that's what I suggest, don't make any decisions, snap decisions, marinate it. It's like ask your heart, in the mind. My mind was like, this is amazing. You got to do it. You're going to be a millionaire in 4 years. You're going to make all this money, blah, blah, blah. But I was sick. I was overweight. I was drinking too much. I was partying too much. And I was like, what is having more money going to do with that? It's going to maybe increase that. It's going to, maybe I'll get sicker, who knows, right? And so it was a tough decision to come to. And the headhunter, he was like, come on, they really want you. You got to say yes. And obviously he gets paid a percentage of my salary if I say yes. So it's, 15% of my first year's salary for him. So he wants me to say yeah. But I ultimately said no. It just didn't feel right. And it was because it was a lateral move. It's not something that I was passionate about. I didn't want to be in mutual fund sales. That was not my highest joy at the time. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I had a little bit of money saved up. I had probably enough for about, say, 6 months, to take 6 months off before I ran out of money. I had a little bit of savings. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take 6 months off and just do whatever. I'm just going to do whatever, see what happens, explore the city, ride my bike, go down to the beach, just literally do whatever. And that was the best thing I could have done because it took that stress of, it wasn't necessarily just the job that I didn't like, it was the industry that I didn't like. It was something that I was not passionate about. It was something that I was just doing for the money, kind of the prestige. It was cool. You got to, the perks, the all that stuff. But it wasn't something that spoke to my heart. I didn't feel purpose or value behind it, right? And so that was a big decision. And it's not always easy to decide to quit your job. Some of you may have families, dependents, kids, and so, especially if you have those things on a single family income, it's not always easy decision to make, but it's better than dying of cancer or getting sick or having a heart attack or a stroke or who knows what, or eating yourself to death, dying of diabetes or obesity, who knows what, if you continue on your healthy lifestyle and your unhealthy lifestyle, right? So that's what today was. I just wanted to talk quickly about that. And it doesn't need to be this long drawn out thing, but you got to start looking at your life. And I like a gentleman I was listening to recently. He said, do a T-bar exercise. So he said, write a T on a piece of paper. And so on the left-hand side, put all the things you don't prefer, which is probably stuff from your past. So the things that you don't prefer about your life. And then on the right side, put the things that you prefer and start seeing which ones you can get rid of and which ones are the easiest to whittle down. So for myself, that was the best, it's still one of the best, funnest times I had in my life because I had some money saved up and I didn't have any obligations and I didn't have to spend, 12 hours of my day away from my home, basically just sleeping at my house, there for a few hours in the evening, then gone to bed and then back up and doing it the next day. So I just started exploring who I was, what I like to do, exploring new parts of the city on my bike, at times when it wasn't busy and things like that, working on electronic music, dipping more into that, spending my time staying up late watching movies that I always wanted to watch or silly TV shows. Swamp People, I think that was one of the things that I was watching back then, on A&E or whatever it was, or whatever channel it was. But I just did whatever. I just kind of went with the flow and it felt really good. It felt amazing to look back into what was important to me, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to work next. And eventually, 6 months later, I ran out of money and I had to go get a job. And so, um, but I was able to do something totally different. So I took a shot in the dark and I went and started working in an industry at a company that I had no experience in, which was, I had sales experience, which I went into, but I started on something fresh. I needed something fresh, something new, something that was exciting, something that hadn't become monotonous, where I felt like I got complacent in life. And I've done that several times since then. I've had a lot of different jobs. I've been self-employed. I like moving around. I like learning new things and doing new things and working with new groups of people. And maybe that's just some of us are like that and some of us aren't. I know that my dad, he worked the same job for 30 years. And I know a lot of people who work the same job their whole lives, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But for myself, that just feels like stagnation to me. And there's the sense of security, I guess, to some degree. But I know a lot of people who thought they had a secure job doing some, mining thing or whatever, or some company they thought was going to be around for the next 30 years. And, things happen, and even seemingly stable businesses go out of business. People lose their jobs, get laid off, things like that. So nothing in the only certain thing in life is uncertainty, right? And so sometimes you got to take that leap of faith. So maybe that's what this the episode should be called, taking the leap of faith, that you know that something inside of you isn't right. You've been doing things logically, doing things from your mind for the wrong reasons, and something in your heart's burning, something in your spirit saying, I got to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. It's killing me. So take that leap of faith, quit your job. If you have some savings, live off the savings, trust in your spirit, have faith in your spirit, have faith in your decision making. Know that the universe will provide, the universe will show up because you're creating it. You are the creator. You can create whatever you want. And so maybe you have to ask yourself, if you're not fulfilled in your job, it's because it's unfulfilling to you. So maybe it's not necessarily, and there might be somebody else out there that's just vying for that job, and you're serving nobody or humanity or creation by staying in a job that you hate for longer than. So I always, I had a friend asking me about it. He was thinking the same thing too. And I said, you know what? If you feel totally in your heart, always listen to your heart. Always, whatever you feel inside, you got to listen to that, your gut instinct, your intuition, whatever you want to call it, your sixth sense. You have to listen to it, because our mind, our little monkey mind, will tell us 1,000 different reasons and calculate all these different reasons why we shouldn't, all that stuff. But I always say, he was a year into it, and I said, give it a second year. Maybe if you want, because things change. Maybe you get promoted. Who knows? Is just reevaluate why you don't like the job. Is it because of this? Is it because of your boss? Is it because of that? Because I know the guy he was working under ended up getting fired a month later, and then the new person that got hired was much better, and things changed, and there was a big shift in the company. And so you never know. Sometimes things shift. So don't make any crazy decisions out there. I watched this video. I'm quitting my job because Rob said so. Feel it in your heart. Feel what's right. Go there after hours. Speak. Let it speak to your soul. Do what you got to do. But like I said on a previous episode, in order to completely change your life, you have to completely change your life. So for me, that involved quitting my job too, because that was part of what was making me sick and unhappy, was the job that I was working, and the environment and the distance and the amount of time it took me to get there. And all those things added up to really hammering down on me. And like I said, eating fast food, three meals a day pretty much, because the commute was so long, and I just didn't feel like cooking breakfast or dinner when I got home and things like that. So I was going out eating Tim Hortons for breakfast, Chinese food for lunch, and then stopping and getting pizza on the way home, because that's where the bus stop was outside of Pizziola, and I love pizzas. So all the things about that job were adding up to something that was unhealthy for me. So that was all I wanted to share with you today. Take that leap of faith, quit your job. Everything's going to work out. You're the creator. The universe will show up if you do. Thank you guys for joining me today. Please, share any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comments below. I really appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions for next week's topic, I'm all ears. Literally, look at the size of these satellites. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. I can hear what you're thinking, so don't mock me. I can hear your every thought. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. Wishing you peace and love and prosperity, and I'll see you next week. And I didn't forget, and I didn't stop recording. Look at that. Don't I feel like a horse's patoot? Thanks a lot. Take care.